Two blondes are shopping at the mall. When they are done, they go out to their car, which happens to be an awesome leather interior convertible. When they get to the car, they realize they had locked the keys in the car, so they both kind of stand there and think for a while. Then one has the idea to try to open the car with a hanger. So the first blonde starts fiddling with the lock with the hanger. The other blonde looks up at the sky and suddenly becomes very worried. "Hurry, hurry," she urges. "It's going to rain and we left the top down." The urine sample. One time I got sick and landed in the hospital. There was this one nurse that just drove me crazy. Every time she came in, she would talk to me like I was a little child. She would say in a patronizing tone of voice, "And how are we doing this morning? Or are we ready for a bath? Or are we hungry?" I had had enough of this particular nurse. One day at breakfast, I took the apple juice off the tray and put it in my bedside stand. Later, I was given a urine sample bottle to fill for testing. "So you know where the juice went." The nurse came in a while later, picked up the urine sample bottle, looked at it and said, My, it seems we are a little cloudy today." At this, I snatched the bottle out of her hand, popped off the top, and gulped it down, saying, "Well, I'll run it through again. Maybe I can filter it better this time." The nurse fainted. I just smiled. The 6th grade science teacher, Mrs. Parks, asked her class, "Which human body part increases to 10 times its size when stimulated?" No one answered until little Mary stood up and said, "You should not be asking 6th graders a question like that. I'm going to tell my parents, and they will go and tell the principal, who will then fire you." Mrs. Parks ignored her and asked the question again. "Which body part increases to 10 times its size when stimulated?" Little Mary's mouth fell open. Then she said to those around her, "Boy, is she going to get in big trouble." The teacher continued to ignore her and said to the class, "Anybody?" Finally, Billy stood up, looked around nervously and said, "The body part that increases 10 times its size when stimulated is the pupil of the eye." Mrs. Parks said, "Very good, Billy," then turned to Mary and continued, "As for you, young lady, I have 3 things to say. 1, you have a dirty mind. 2, you didn't read your homework. And 3, one day you are going to be very, very disappointed." A man placed some flowers on the grave of his dearly departed mother and started back toward his car when his attention was diverted to another man kneeling at a grave. The man seemed to be praying with profound intensity and kept repeating, "Why did you have to die? Why did you have to die?" The first man approached him and said, "Sir, I don't wish to intrude on your private grief, but this demonstration of pain is more than I have ever seen before. For whom do you mourn so deeply? A child? A parent?" The mourner took a moment to collect himself, then replied, "My wife's first husband." For his wife's birthday, a doctor ordered hammocks with this inscription, "You are not getting older, you are getting better." When asked how he wanted it arranged, he said, "Just put 'You are not getting older' at the top, and 'You are just getting better' at the bottom." It wasn't until the good doctor was ready to serve the cake that he discovered it read, "You are not getting older at the top, you are just getting better at the bottom." One morning, the ship was passing very close to a small island. As I was admiring the serenity of this far-off place, a ruckus occurred. On the island, a man came running out from the thickness of the brush. His hair was down to his waist, and his beard almost the same. His clothes were tattered straps, barely covering his beet-red skin. He was frantically waving his arms around as he jumped up and down, and he seemed to be yelling something. The captain of the ship happened to be on a morning stroll around the deck, so I grabbed his attention and brought him to my spot on the rail. "Captain, there, on that island, there's a man over there. What do you think he's yelling?" I asked. "Oh, don't mind him. the captain replied. He does this every 3 months when we pass by. When Dad was left home alone with his toddler daughter for a few weeks, he quickly discovered how adaptable she was. One of the cutest things, her newfound obsession with tea parties. Every evening while he relaxed in front of the TV, she'd waddle over with a tiny plastic teacup and declare, "Tea time, Daddy." He'd take a dainty sip of the clear tea and proclaim, "Wow, that's delicious." She'd giggle, glow with pride, and scurry off to refill his cup. By the time Mom came home, he couldn't wait to show off how their little girl had been taking care of him like a proper hostess. Right on cue, the toddler burst into the room with her tea set, handed Daddy a cup, and stood expectantly. He took a sip and smiled. "Still the best tea I've ever had." Mom watched the sweet scene, then raised an eyebrow. "Oh, that's adorable," she said. Then, with perfect calm, she added, "Just curious, have you ever asked where she gets the water?" Dad shrugged. "Nope." "Why?" "She can only reach one place on her own," Mom replied. "The toilet." A boy is riding in an elevator with an old man when he notices a pretty bad smell. Wrinkling his nose, the boy tugs at the old man's pants and asks, "Excuse me, mister, but did you just fart?" "Of course I did, sonny," the old man snaps. "You think I always smell like this?" A little boy was wandering around a hotel when he heard some strange noises coming from one of the rooms. Curious, he opened the door and said, "Wow, it's really dark in here." From inside, a man's voice replied, "What do you want, kid? Here's $10. Go get yourself something and don't come back." Well, a little while later, the boy came back, opened the same door, and again said, "Wow, it's still dark in here." Annoyed, the man groaned, "You again? Fine, here's $10 more. Now scram." The boy walked away with $20 in his pocket and a mischievous grin on his face. The next morning, feeling a little guilty, he confessed to his mom. She frowned and said, "That's not okay. You need to go to church and confess your sins." So off he went. He entered the confession booth and said, "Wow, it's dark in here." And from the other side, he heard a very familiar voice say, "Seriously? Not you again?" A travel agent was sitting at his desk when he noticed an elderly couple standing outside, gazing longingly at the posters of dream vacations in the shop window. They looked sweet, and honestly, a little heartbroken. The agent had just had a great week in business, so he felt a wave of kindness wash over him. He rushed outside, brought them in, and said, "Listen, I know travel isn't easy on a pension, but I want to treat you both to a luxury vacation. My treat. No strings attached. Just say yes." Shocked but thrilled, the couple accepted. The agent had his assistant book 2 plane tickets and a room at a beautiful 5-star resort. About a month later, the little old lady came back into the shop, smiling. "How was the trip?" the agent asked. "Oh, it was just lovely. The flight was wonderful and the hotel was like something out of a dream," she said. "I came to say thank you, but I do have one question." The agent raised an eyebrow. "Sure, what is it?" She leaned in and whispered, "Who was that old man I had to share the room with?" An old man was a witness in a burglary case. The defense lawyer asked Sam, "Did you see my client commit this burglary?" "Yes," said Sam. "I saw him plainly take the goods." The lawyer asked Sam again, "Sam, this happened at night. Are you sure you saw my client commit this crime?" "Yes," says Sam. "I saw him do it." Then the lawyer asked Sam, "Sam, listen, you are an 80-year-old and your eyesight is probably bad. Just how far can you see at night?" Sam says, "I can see the moon. How far is that?" A man lay on his deathbed, surrounded by his loving family, his devoted wife and 4 children. 3 of the kids were tall, athletic, and strikingly handsome, but the youngest was, well, let's just say, not quite the same. With his final breath, the man turned to his wife and whispered, "My love, please tell me the truth. Is our youngest child truly mine? I can handle anything. I just need to know before I go." His wife smiled softly, took his hand and said, "Yes, my darling, of course. He is absolutely yours." The man sighed in peace and passed away with a smile on his face. The wife looked around, took a deep breath and quietly said to herself, "Whew, good thing he didn't ask about the other 3. After his checkup, the doctor smiled at the elderly man and said, "Well, you seem to be in great shape. Any health concerns on your mind?" "Actually, yes, Doc," the old man replied. "Every time I make love to my wife after the first round, I'm hot and sweaty. But after the second time, I'm freezing and shivering. What's up with that?" Curious, the doctor decided to examine his wife as well. After finishing, he reassured her, "You're in perfect health. Do you have any concerns or questions for me?" She shook her head. "Nope, I'm all good." The doctor scratched his head. "Well, your husband mentioned something odd. He says after the first time you make love, he's burning up, but after the second time, he's shivering like it's winter. Any idea why?" The elderly lady rolled her eyes and chuckled. "Oh, that silly old man. That's because the first time is in August and the second time is in January." A young woman leaned in close to an old man at the bar. "Come on, sir, just give it a try," she teased. The old man shook his head. "No, sweetheart, I just don't think I can do it." She smiled playfully. "Oh, come on, just one little attempt. I know you've got it in you." Finally, the old man sighed, stood up, and gave it everything he had. An hour later, she lay there, exhausted, catching her breath. "Wow, you had me fooled. You said you couldn't do it." The old man wiped his forehead and grinned. "Oh, I was talking about paying for it." An old cowboy moseyed into a Starbucks and ordered himself a cup of coffee. He found a seat, tipped his hat back, and started sipping. Not long after, a young woman sat down beside him and asked, "Excuse me, are you a real cowboy?" The old man thought for a moment and said, "Well, ma'am, I've spent my whole life breaking colts, herding cattle, fixing fences, branding calves, mending tractors, sleeping under the stars, and wrangling just about everything on 4 legs. So yeah, I reckon I am." The young woman nodded and said, "I'm a lesbian. I spend most of my day thinking about women. I wake up thinking about women. I shower thinking about women. I eat, watch TV, work. No matter what I'm doing, I'm always thinking about women." The cowboy tipped his hat politely, and they both sat in silence, sipping their drinks. A little while later, another man came along, sat on the other side of the cowboy, and asked, "Are you a real cowboy?" The old man looked up and said, "Well, I thought I was, but turns out I might actually be a lesbian." One night, a guy was walking home when he saw a drunk man on his hands and knees under a streetlight, searching for something. Being a good Samaritan, he asked, "Hey, buddy, what are you looking for?" The drunk slurred, "I tripped, and my Rolex fell off." Feeling bad for him, the man got down and started searching too. After 10 minutes of finding nothing, he asked, "Are you sure you lost it here?" The drunk shook his head and pointed down the street. "Oh no, I tripped way over there." Confused, the man asked, "Then why are we looking here?" The drunk grinned, "Because the light's better here." For his birthday, David got a parrot. But this wasn't your average sweet-talking bird. Oh no, this parrot was fully grown, had a nasty attitude, and a mouth worse than a sailor on bad coffee. Every other word was either rude, offensive, or downright unrepeatable. David tried everything to fix this feathered menace. He spoke kindly to it, played soft music, even tried classical radio. Nothing worked. The more polite David was, the more disrespectful the parrot became. He yelled. It yelled louder. He threatened it. It cursed him out. It was like living with a feathery little gangster. One day, at his wit's end, David lost it. In a moment of pure desperation, he gently shoved the parrot into the freezer for just a few seconds, just to cool him off, literally and figuratively. The bird went wild, squawking, scratching, kicking the door, then suddenly, silence. Panicked, David flung open the freezer door. The parrot calmly stepped out, eyes wide, feathers slightly frosty, and said in the most polite tone ever, "Sir, I deeply apologize for my past behavior. I have seen the error of my ways, and I will make every effort to be a model bird from now on. Please forgive me." David stood there, stunned, trying to process the sudden transformation. Before he could say a word, the parrot leaned in and whispered, "May I ask, what exactly did the chicken do?"